This afternoon, we are zooming in on the aviation sector, and I'm now joined in studio by Phuthego Mojapele, who is an independent aviation analyst. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Could you give us a characterization of what the aviation industry looks like in South Africa at the moment?
Thank you very much. The industry at the moment is not in a great shape. There has been a lot of turbulence around the industry, especially the fact that our national carrier is not really doing well. And I think the most important thing for us is to acknowledge the fact that there is a decline. And the decline is not only because the airlines are not performing as they're supposed to be, but the fact that there's been a very serious a decline as far as our currency is concerned, and also the fact that there's oil price and so on. So people are just really not willing to pay more than what they've been paying. But in general, you would realize that South Africa, we are sitting at the southern tip of Africa, and in terms of connection and other things that might allow passengers to do more connections in southern Africa, precisely in Johannesburg or Cape Town, it might be a little bit difficult. You would know that other airlines like Ethiopia and Kenya, they're far east, which is really an advantage for them if they were to get into Europe, and so the industry is not doing well, and there are so many reasons that the industry, the reasons why industry is not doing well.
Okay, let's take a closer look in South Africa. Then South African Airways failed to submit financial results to Parliament. This is not the first time this has happened. Should there be even more concern about the national carrier?
Look, you would realize that SAA has gone through turbulence, and that's the fact, and we should not ignore that. You had CEO who has just resigned, and you had so many investigations and suspensions that has been really wreaking havoc in that state-owned airline, and those reasons. And also another factor here is that you've got a new minister who obviously is working very hard in making sure that the compliance and the turnaround strategy is being implemented as it's supposed to. I don't think we should be worried about them not being able to submit the report. I think what is important is to make sure that what would be on that report is factual and is able to pave the way into what is the status of the airline at this stage, because there's quite a lot of things that are happening. And if you don't have a CEO, you've got an acting CEO. There was a strategy that was implemented by Mr. Jarana and his team, and all those plans that were there implemented, they basically came to an halt. And it would make more sense for them not able to submit the report based on the fact that they're probably still doing some cleanup. But I don't think that we've got capable, SAA has a capable men and women that would be able to drive the airline as they have been doing for so many years.
That's not a view shared by the South African Airways Pilots Association. There was a survey that was conducted within that union, if I can call it that, or that association, and it's found that around 90% of the members say there's challenges with management and leadership at SAA, and they'd be willing to strike, which hasn't happened in around 80 years. So from that side, what would the ramifications of that be? And is the management correct if the people who work there don't believe it is?
Okay, I think one of the things that they have cited on one of the things that the demands is that they would like to see an independent skills audit of the executive, which I think I'm agreeing with them on that. I think that is very much important. And one of the things that they said should happen here is to have somebody with aviation experience, people with aviation experience on the board, which is something that I am fully supporting. Because for us to have an airline that is going to be operating and making money, we should be able to have the right people on executive level. And when I was earlier on, when I was making a point that the SAA has men and women that are determined to turn things around, so I was referring to the fact that operational, there are men and women, including the pilots themselves. We've got a good cream of people that can actually turn things around. What SAA needs to do is to just make sure that they have the right executive that can drive the agenda of the airline, so that we can start making money as an airline. And I can assure you, SAA is a good airline. We just need to have executive that would be able to turn things around as it's supposed to.
Okay, let's go to this strike that was averted or interdicted now. NUMSA's ground staff want to strike over, among other things, the issue of anniversary bonuses. Explain that to us, and then there's a view that people shouldn't perhaps be embarking on such large action when it comes to the issue of bonuses.
NUMSA had an issue with ComAir recently. You know, there was a strike that was interdicted that was about to happen, and it has been an ongoing process with them, and therefore, and I think if we were to see that strike happening, it would be a blow for the industry that is not performing very well, more especially that there has been a report that has just been released. And I think if all parties come to the table, and address these issues and avoid having this industrial action that they are intending to do.
Safety is one of the concerns for a lot of people who travel by air. We've just seen that there's been a so-called security breach, and apparently parts were used on a Mango plane where there was no service history. There's apparently like a backdoor situation where criminal elements are selling parts to an airline like Mango. That should cause panic. How deep does that issue go? And do we know that just because that one instance was caught, that perhaps it won't happen again?
Okay, firstly, let me correct this. Mango doesn't procure anything. SAA does. SAA Technical does. Second thing is that that investigation about the incident, it is now in the hands of South African Civil Aviation Authority to do a full comprehensive investigation as to what has transpired. Thirdly, I don't understand, or I don't believe on the notion that people has done a security breach on our airline. And I do not believe that. All the engineers that works on the planes, they are accredited, they are certified to work on the particular aircraft that we will be working on. And we have those engineers in South Africa, and I don't think there's any compromise as far as safety of our passengers is concerned in South Africa. There's so many things, processes that the aircraft, before they can go airborne, have to go through. And I think we should be very careful as public that anything that is written on the newspapers or any publication is actually correct. Because when the report was released, that's when we can start talking about. At this stage, there's no report that was released. And we should stop scaring people from flying by insinuating things like airlines are using pirate parts. There's no such a thing. And I think we should allow the investigation to go on, and then we can make comments out of that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Phuthego Mojapele, independent aviation analyst, joining me in studio to discuss the state of aviation in South Africa. After a short break, we continue the discussion with law professor Tshepo Mongalo. Do stay with us on Point.